There are times, not often in human history, when the urge to build conspires with a vision of beauty. When the will to achieve conspires with the skill to create. What is born is that rare thing, a work of wonder. A work that gives pause, that catches the breath, that seems to cry out, behold what we can accomplish. These are the enduring works of man's own creation, lasting testaments of an eternal struggle to leave a mark on a fleeting world. On the other side of the world, a new emperor scratched a man-made line of rock across the face of the earth. As if to say, even to the gods, here is my land, approach at your peril. The Ming Dynasty of China had finally cast off the yoke of Mongol rule, forcing the descendants of Genghis Khan to withdraw to the northern steppes. China, the Middle Kingdom, was again ruled by a Chinese emperor. And to defend the empire, the building of a massive wall was ordered, stretching from the Yalu River on the Bay of Korea to the wilderness of the Gobi Desert. 3,000 miles of brick and stone, 25 feet high, the largest edifice ever built by man, and perhaps the only structure visible from space. If it were laid end to end in the United States, it would link New York and Los Angeles. The Great Wall of China that exists today is the one built during the Ming Dynasty, which started even before the birth of Columbus in the 15th century. But the idea of building a wall around the Middle Kingdom dates back 2,000 years earlier, to the 8th century before Christ. At that time, China was in chaos. Warring states waged battle on one another and fought off nomadic tribes that invaded from the north. Over hundreds of years, a succession of earthen walls had been built, stretching between mountains and along valleys in vain attempts to keep out hostile neighbors. But in the year 221 BC, one man unified China and proclaimed himself her first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi. In his brief 12-year reign, Qin Shi Huangdi linked together thousands of miles of old walls in a massive military defense against the Huns. A girdle round a nation, this great wall would come to symbolize China forevermore, fiercely protective, hostile to foreigners, prodigious in work, a unified people of the land. Qin Shi Huangdi's wall gave the Chinese a national identity they had never before experienced, and it meant security. The northern frontiers soon attracted settlers and farmers. In its protective shadow, traders ventured along roads leading westward, a journey over what came to be known as the Silk Route, bringing the riches of the Orient to India, Persia, and Rome. The Chinese emperor wrote, "Now the common people are pacified, and no longer have any fear of war. Men work on the land, while women likewise are engaged in their work. But that was his version. The wall may have been an astonishing military feat, but it was also a brutal act of forced labor. 800,000 soldiers, captive workers, and prisoners were pressed into service to build the wall. Criminals faced a particularly grim punishment. Their heads were shaved, faces blackened, and with necks clamped into iron collars, they were dispatched to far-flung provinces to haul dirt. One chronicler wrote, "Ditches on the roadside were filled with corpses of men who had been forced into construction of the Great Wall. And when men could no longer be found, their widows joined the march." One widow's story has passed into legend. Here at the eastern edge of the wall near the China Sea, a temple stands in tribute to Meng Jiannu. Meng, the story goes, went in search of her husband who had been forced to construct the wall. When she learned that he lay buried beneath the barricade, her copious tears made the wall collapse. She discovered her husband's bones and cursed the emperor. By denouncing the autocratic ruler, she became the symbolic voice of the common people against an almighty oppressor. Little of Qin Shi Huangti's dirt wall remains today. These stone fortifications are the result of 200 continuous years of restoration and building under the Ming Dynasty. Their work, in turn, is being restored even today. The wall traverses half of China, hugging mountain cliffs and standing guard in valleys, ingeniously turning harsh landscape to tactical advantage. At the strategic garrison town of Sanhaiguan, a circular fortress 2.5 miles around overlooks the ocean like the head of a dragon snaking down to the sea. A moat 25 feet deep protects this gate, called the First Pass under heaven. "1,400 miles away, the Jiayuguan Fortress was the final outpost of the empire as it leaned westward toward the vast Mongol desert. Between these two extremes stood a network of some 25,000 watchtowers, manned by sentries who lived inside the hollow garrisons. When under attack, they would relay information about enemy troop strength by sending up smoke signals by day, fires by night. War intelligence traveled hundreds of miles in a matter of hours. Near Beijing, the all-important fortress of Badalin is built within layer after layer of outer walls, wide enough to accommodate 5 mounted horses or 10 infantrymen marching abreast. Double notches, or crenellations, assure that the wall can be defended no matter which side is attacked. While the wall may have survived the arrows and swords of the Mongols and the Manchus, it barely survived the ideological assaults of our own time. During the Cultural Revolution of the late 1960s, disdain for the past led contemptuous farmers to trundle away whole sections of the wall for use in their pigsties. But today, the Great Wall has been restored, if not always physically, then figuratively, to the signal role it once played in China's national psyche. It again stands as a defining line, an imprint on the land, testament to the endurance of a people and of their ancestors who built it. Perched high in the thin air of the Andes, 7,000 feet above the ocean, a mystery lay shrouded in the cloud forests for 4 centuries. 16th century chronicles told that these impenetrable mountains hid the last great city of the Incas, Vilcabamba, the city where Manco Inca, the leader of the Children of the Sun, desperately sought refuge from the Spanish, who had decimated his empire in their lust for gold. In 1911, a young American historian, Hiram Bingham, set out to chart the unexplored ruins of the Urubamba Valley in Peru. Local Indians guided him to a remote mountaintop, which at first seemed impossibly inhospitable to human habitation. The Indians called it simply the Old Peak, Machu Picchu. Bingham described the journey.
On all fours, we pulled ourselves up through slippery grass. Far below, the Urubamba snarled angrily. We rounded a knoll and suddenly faced tier upon tier of Inca terraces. What settlement had needed 100 such terraces? Enough food could be grown here to feed a city. This beautifully preserved sanctuary had obviously never felt the tramp of a conquistador's boot. I realized that Machu Picchu might prove to be the largest and most important ruin discovered in South America since the Spaniards arrived.
What Bingham had come across, though choked by jungle growth, was extraordinary. A plateau stretching 2 square miles, with more than 200 buildings of unsurpassed stonemasonry.
Dimly, I began to realize that this wall, with its adjoining semicircular temple over the cave, was as fine as the finest stonework in the world. It fairly took my breath away. What could this place be?
Bingham came to believe that he had found the lost city of Vilcabamba, sanctuary of Manco Inca. But Machu Picchu eludes most explanations, for it is not a city at all, but rather an immense religious center, a sacred place for the rituals of one of the world's most enigmatic civilizations. The Incas built an empire that at its height in the 16th century extended some 2,500 miles, the most powerful in South America. The Inca capital, Cuzco, swarmed with 100,000 people, and their wealth was legendary. This courtyard at Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun in Cuzco, was once plated with 700 solid gold sheets, each weighing more than 4 pounds. Like most of the Incas' treasures, it was looted by Spanish conquerors. The Incas were ingenious social organizers. Despite having no written language, they developed a sophisticated economy, hewing terraces into the steep terrain, irrigating them with canals, cultivating corn and potatoes, domesticating alpacas and llamas. Today, many of Peru's Indians conduct their lives on the foundations of their Inca ancestors. And speak the language, Quechua, once spoken in the temples of Machu Picchu. But the most enduring Inca achievement is also their most baffling. These monuments in stone. Enormous granite blocks so precisely fitted that not even a penknife can pierce the cracks. The builders hauled the blocks miles from their quarries, And yet no evidence has ever shown that they possessed the wheel, any draft animals, or tools hard enough to hew these perfect blocks. Like their hard-working descendants, teams of Machu Picchu's builders must have dragged each rough-hewn stone at an agonizing pace, lugging it along the ground with fiber ropes. Sometimes the stones were so heavy they were abandoned in a field. But the men were not punished. Rather, the Incas preferred to blame the rocks, calling them secusca, weary stones. Once on the site, the stones were fine cut and laid into place. As many as 40 angles would be carved in one rock face in order to secure a perfect fit or to create a delicate curve in a wall, as in the Temple of the Sun. The trapezoidal shape of most of the buildings was an Inca innovation, lending stability during frequent earthquakes that shook the Andes. Most have survived intact, only their thatched roofs falling prey to 5 centuries of jungle weather. But what went on here to warrant such elaborate construction? Machu Picchu seems to have been a kind of sacred headquarters for the Inca religion, a religion based on worship of the sun and its progress through the heavens. The Intihuatana, or tethering place of the sun. This stone outcropping allowed Incas to predict the solstices and equinoxes, so critical to the planting and reaping of corn. On the June solstice, marking the beginning of winter south of the equator, the sun was symbolically hitched to the land to ensure its return in the coming months. The festival, called Inti Raymi, lasted 9 days and is still observed in the ancient Inca fortress called Sacsayhuaman. To the Incas, the sun was the divine father of all the people, and the king was the sun's regent on earth. Gold symbolized the tears of the sun, and corn was the sun's golden produce. From this very fortress in the year 1536, the besieged leader, Manco Inca, fled to the hills forever. Only 4 years earlier, Francisco Pizarro had led a tiny band of Spaniards into the heart of the Inca Empire. Spurred by rumors of fabulous wealth and armed with superior weapons, fewer than 200 Spanish managed to conquer an Indian population of several million, kill their emperor Atahualpa, and loot the capital. By July 1533, the Spanish had collected 24 tons of gold and silver. When Manco Inca lost his final battle, he abandoned Cusco. It soon became a colonial town, built on the indestructible foundations of the Inca city. And Manco Inca's last refuge, called Vilcabamba, could it actually have been at Machu Picchu? Evidence seems to point to another site, recently located far to the northwest. Machu Picchu had probably been abandoned long before and had already fallen prey to the encroaching jungle. Like the civilization that built it, Machu Picchu remains a mystery, swallowed by the land from which it sprang.